I never thought I'd be the one to discover a corporate conspiracy. Not me, Melissa Chen, the quiet, behind-the-scenes analytics manager who preferred spreadsheets to office politics. But life has a strange way of thrusting us into roles we never imagined playing. My heart still races when I remember that Tuesday in October. The autumn sun streamed through Noventra Solutions' floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows across our Atlanta headquarters. Outside, the city skyline stretched toward a cloudless sky, oblivious to how my world was about to fracture. The first half of my day had been remarkably ordinary. I'd spent the morning dissecting quarterly data, preparing reports for the upcoming board meeting, and exchanging pleasantries with colleagues in the break room. Noventra was experiencing unprecedented growth, stock prices climbing, new contracts pouring in, expansion plans underway. As a tech consultancy firm specializing in security solutions, we were riding the digital transformation wave perfectly. My office sat in the corner of the 23rd floor, not quite executive territory, but with enough glass and chrome to signal I'd climbed a few rungs up the corporate ladder. From my desk, I could see Olivia Sutton's workspace, positioned strategically outside Martin Caldwell's corner office. As the CEO's executive assistant, Olivia's desk was command central, and she ran it with military precision. I admired Olivia. At 34, just 2 years my senior, she'd mastered the art of corporate politics while maintaining genuine warmth. Her desk was immaculate, not a paperclip out of place, yet her smile never felt rehearsed. In an industry dominated by competitive ambition, Olivia's collaborative spirit stood out. She'd helped me navigate complex office dynamics when I was promoted last year, and I counted her among the few genuine friends I'd made at Noventra. That's why when my phone rang at 3:17 p.m., displaying Martin Caldwell's mobile number, I felt only mild curiosity, not dread. "Melissa." Martin's voice sounded strained through the speakerphone. "Is Olivia at her desk?" I glanced through my glass partition. Olivia sat typing, her posture perfect as always. Dark hair swept into a neat bun. A steaming mug of tea sat beside her keyboard. "Yes, she's at her desk right now," I replied, puzzled by the urgency in his tone. The pause that followed lasted only seconds, but felt eternal. "No." His voice cracked. "That's impossible. I just watched her board my plane with a briefcase full of confidential company files." My gaze snapped back to Olivia's desk. She was still there, still typing. "Martin, I'm looking at her right now," I insisted, confusion mounting. "She's sitting at her desk, working. Melissa, listen to me." The desperation in his voice made my skin prickle. "I am on our corporate jet. We're about to take off from Hartsfield-Jackson. Someone who looks exactly like Olivia just boarded, carrying what I recognize as my private project briefcase, the one with the Cambridge acquisition details. The Cambridge deal, our company's most significant potential acquisition to date, worth billions, and still completely confidential. Only the executive team and their direct reports knew the full details. If that information leaked, there must be some mistake," I whispered, but doubt had already crept in. "Check her computer," Martin commanded. "Now." I hesitated, staring at Olivia through the glass. We'd shared lunch just yesterday, laughing over her stories about her weekend hiking trip. This couldn't be right. "Melissa, this is not a request. I'll check," I stammered. As I rose from my chair, my computer screen flickered violently. The lights above my cubicle buzzed, dimmed, and brightened again. And then, distinctly, I heard footsteps behind me. Slow, deliberate steps approaching from the corridor that should have been empty at this hour. I turned slowly, phone still. Clutched in my hand, Martin's anxious breathing audible through the speaker. Ethan Wells, our head of IT security, stood in my doorway, his expression grim. "We have a problem," he said quietly, eyes darting toward Olivia's desk. "Someone's been accessing our secure servers from an unauthorized location. The signal traces back to Olivia's credentials." My world tilted. The woman I'd trusted, admired, and befriended. Was she the person I thought I knew? Or was something more complex and sinister unfolding? "Martin," I whispered into the phone, "I think you should get back here, now." What I didn't realize then was that by the time his plane landed, nothing at Noventra Solutions would ever be the same again, and I would be at the center of a storm I never saw coming. "Lock down her computer," Martin instructed over the phone, his voice now steely with executive authority. "Don't let her leave the building. I'm telling the pilot to abort takeoff." Ethan nodded, already tapping commands into his tablet. "I've frozen her network access, but we need to move carefully. If she's orchestrated something sophisticated enough to be in two places at once, alerting her could trigger contingency plans. I glanced again at Olivia, still typing calmly at her desk, completely unaware she was the focus of mounting suspicion. My stomach churned with conflicting emotions. Loyalty to the company battling with 5 years of friendship and trust. "Martin, what if you're mistaken?" I asked. "What if it just looked like Olivia?" "I've worked with her for 7 years," he replied sharply. "I know what my own executive assistant looks like. The woman on this plane has Olivia's face, her walk, even that small birthmark near her right eye." My blood ran cold. That detail wasn't something someone would notice in passing. "Facial recognition technology exists, Melissa," Ethan murmured, reading my expression. "So do deep fakes. But duplicating physical attributes like a birthmark? That's something else entirely." The implications were staggering. Corporate espionage had evolved far beyond stealing passwords or hacking servers. This was theatrical, elaborate, almost personal. I need to approach her, I decided. If we're wrong, she deserves to know what's happening. Ethan caught my arm. "Not yet. First, we need evidence." He nodded toward the far side of the floor where Rebecca. Lynn from HR was emerging from the elevator, right on schedule for her afternoon coffee. "Rebecca first! We need witnesses!" While Ethan discreetly briefed Rebecca, I maintained my position by the window, pretending to review documents while keeping Olivia in my peripheral vision. She looked up briefly, caught my eye, and smiled. The same warm, genuine smile I'd come to associate with impromptu, lunch invitations and supportive pep talks before big presentations. Could she really be capable of betrayal on this scale? "Rebecca's with us," Ethan confirmed, returning to my side. "She's pulling Olivia's badge logs while I check the security camera archives." Within minutes, Rebecca appeared in my doorway, her typically composed face etched with confusion. "According to our systems, Olivia badged in at 7:43 this morning and hasn't left the building. But," she paused, lowering her voice, "her credentials were also used to access the executive parking garage at 2:30 p.m. "That's impossible," I whispered. "Even with a cloned badge, the system would flag duplicate entries." "Not if someone modified the security protocols," Ethan interjected, his expression darkening as he studied his tablet. "Look at this." He turned the screen toward us. Security footage showed Olivia at her desk, working steadily throughout the day. But a separate feed from the executive garage captured her, or someone identical to her, sliding into the passenger seat of a black Audi at 2:35 p.m., carrying a slim leather briefcase. "The timestamp authentication codes don't match standard protocol," Ethan noted. "Someone's manipulated the footage, professionally." "But why?" Rebecca whispered. "What's in that briefcase worth this level of deception?" The answer hit me with sickening clarity. The Cambridge acquisition. If our competitors learned we were purchasing Cambridge Technologies before the announcement, they could counter-offer or manipulate stock prices, Rebecca finished, her HR training, immediately recognizing the implications. The damage would be immeasurable. My phone vibrated with a text from Martin. "Plane grounded. Security holding suspect. Returning to office. ETA 45 minutes. Keep this contained." The three of us exchanged glances, understanding the gravity of what came next. Someone had to confront Olivia, the Olivia sitting 30 feet away, while the other Olivia was being detained at the airport. "I'll do it," I volunteered, surprising even myself. She trusts me. Before I could second-guess my decision, I smoothed my blazer and walked toward Olivia's desk, attempting to project casual normalcy despite my racing heart. Each step felt leaden with the weight of potential betrayal. "Hey, Liv," I greeted her, forcing a smile. "Got a minute? I need your help with something in the conference room." Olivia looked up, her expression showing nothing but friendly curiosity. "Of course." She locked her computer with practiced efficiency. "The quarterly projections giving you trouble again?" Her voice, familiar, warm, exactly as it always sounded, made my doubt resurface. How could this be an imposter? Or worse, how could the real Olivia be capable of such elaborate deceit? As she stood, gathering her tablet and phone, I noticed something small, but jarring. Her signature jade bracelet, the one she'd told me her grandmother had given her, was missing. In 3 years, I'd never seen her without it. "Actually," I amended, my pulse quickening, "I was wondering if you've seen the Cambridge files recently. Martin mentioned you might have prepped them for his trip." The change was subtle but unmistakable. A flicker of something behind her eyes, a momentary stiffening of her shoulders before she relaxed again. Cambridge? She tilted her head, the picture of innocent confusion. I'm not familiar with that project. Is it new? The lie slid out so smoothly that had I not known better, I might have believed her. But Olivia had personally helped me compile data for the Cambridge acquisition just last week. She'd stayed late 3 nights in a row, ordering takeout for both of us while we worked through financial projections. My mistake, I backpedaled, maintaining my smile while adrenaline coursed through my veins. I must be mixing up projects. Her answering smile didn't reach her eyes. Happens to the best of us. Should we head to the conference room? As we walked together down the corridor, I texted Ethan behind my back. Something's wrong. Not Olivia, missing bracelet. Denies knowledge of Cambridge. His reply came seconds later. Keep her talking. Security en route. Martin landing now. Actually, I said, redirecting us toward the executive break room instead. I could really use some coffee first. Mind joining me? Of course, she agreed readily, but as we rounded the corner, I noticed her gaze lingering on the elevator bank, calculating. The executive break room was empty, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering spectacular views of downtown Atlanta. I busied myself with the espresso machine, buying time while trying to process the impossibility of the situation. Whoever this woman was, whether Olivia herself or someone else entirely, she had orchestrated something both brilliant and terrible, and I was alone with her, waiting for answers that felt increasingly dangerous to obtain. The espresso machine hissed and steamed as I methodically went through the motions, my mind racing far ahead of my hands. The woman who looked like Olivia leaned against the marble countertop, scrolling casually through her phone as if this were just another ordinary afternoon break. You know, I began carefully, setting a cup before her. I was thinking about that hiking trip you mentioned yesterday. Blue Ridge Mountains, right? Which trail did you end up taking? Her smile was perfect. The same slight curl at the corners that I'd seen 1,000 times across conference tables and in elevator rides. It was gorgeous. We did the Appalachian section near Blood Mountain. The views were incredible. I nodded, feigning interest while my stomach twisted into knots. The real Olivia had indeed gone hiking last weekend, but to the Smokies, not Blue Ridge. She'd shown me pictures of her campsite by a waterfall in Great Smoky Mountains National Park. I'd never mentioned Blood Mountain. Sounds amazing, I replied, buying time. Through the glass walls of the break room, I spotted Ethan moving purposefully down the hallway, Rebecca a few steps behind him. Security would arrive any minute. Did your dog enjoy it? You mentioned you were bringing him along. Another flawless smile. He loved it. Couldn't get enough of the trails. Olivia didn't have a dog. She had a cat named Miso who hated the outdoors. The realization hit me like a physical blow. I was standing 3 feet away from someone who had studied Olivia enough to replicate her appearance, mannerisms, and professional demeanor, but not enough to know her personal life. This was corporate espionage of the highest order. Is something wrong with your coffee? She asked, noting my pause. Before I could respond, the break room door opened. Ethan entered, followed by Rebecca and 2 members of Noventra's security team, both discreetly armed, I noticed with a flutter of alarm. Ms. Sutton, one of them said politely, we need you to come with us, please. The woman's expression remained composed, but I caught the subtle shift in her posture, a coiling of muscles, the calculation behind her eyes. What's this about? She asked. Her voice perfect, a pitch-perfect imitation of Olivia's gentle authority. Just a security protocol, Ethan explained smoothly. We're checking all executive staff credentials today after a system anomaly. For a moment, I thought she would comply. She set down her coffee cup and took a step forward, smiling apologetically as if this were merely an inconvenient interruption to her workday. Then, everything happened at once. She lunged toward the emergency exit door, moving with a fluid athleticism that the real Olivia, who joked about being allergic to gyms, had never displayed. One security officer moved to intercept her while the other drew his weapon. Stop, he commanded. Noventra security, don't move! But she was already slamming through the door, triggering the alarm system. Red. Emergency lights began flashing throughout the floor as the piercing wail of sirens filled the air. I caught a glimpse of her kicking off her heels as she sprinted toward the stairwell, evidence that whoever had planned this infiltration had prepared for every contingency. Lockdown procedures initiated, announced the automated security system. Steel shutters began descending over the elevator. Banks. Stay here, Ethan instructed me firmly before racing after the security team, his tablet forgotten on the counter. Alone in the suddenly chaotic break room, I found myself staring at Ethan's abandoned tablet, still logged into Noventra's security systems. Without fully understanding why, I grabbed it and began scrolling through the camera feeds, tracking the imposter's escape route through the building. The stairwell cameras showed her descending rapidly, floor after floor, moving with practiced efficiency. But what caught my attention wasn't her escape. It was what she was doing as she ran. At each landing, she paused briefly to place something small against the wall. My blood chilled as I realized what I was witnessing. I grabbed my phone and called Ethan. "She's planting devices." "In the stairwell," I gasped when he answered. "Every third floor." "What kind of—" His question was cut short by a sudden explosion that rocked the building. Not large enough to cause structural damage, but perfectly calculated to trigger the sprinkler systems and force an evacuation. Water began pouring from ceiling sprinklers across the office. Chaos erupted as employees rushed toward emergency exits, many looking bewildered and frightened. Through the streaming water and flashing lights, I watched the digital display on the wall shift from security lockdown to emergency evacuation. Perfect cover for an escape. My phone buzzed with Martin's call. "Melissa, what the hell is happening?" "The imposter triggered the evacuation protocols," I explained, hurrying toward my office to salvage what I could before everything was soaked. "She's escaping in the chaos." "And the real Olivia?" I froze, realization dawning. "Martin, if the woman at the office is an imposter, and the woman on your plane is an imposter, then where is the real Olivia?" He finished grimly. The question hung between us, heavy with implications neither of us wanted to voice. "I'm heading back to the office." "Now," Martin said. "The woman from the plane is in custody. Meet me in the executive garage in 20 minutes. Bring Ethan." As I navigated through the streams of evacuating employees, clutching my laptop bag and Ethan's tablet, a notification popped up on my phone. A text from an unknown number. "Check Olivia's apartment. Come alone or she dies. You have 30 minutes. Attached was a photo that made my heart stop. Olivia, the real Olivia, bound to a chair, fear evident in her eyes. She was holding today's newspaper, confirmation this wasn't an old image. I had a choice to make, and barely any time to make it. Follow Martin's instructions and meet him with the security team, or follow this mysterious lead alone and potentially save my friend's life. The decision felt impossible, yet somehow already made. Rain had begun falling outside, transforming Atlanta's skyline into a blur of watery lights and shadows. The evacuation had pushed hundreds of Noventra employees onto the streets, where they huddled under awnings and inside nearby coffee shops, watching our building with concern and curiosity. Emergency vehicles lined the perimeter, their red and blue lights pulsing through the gray afternoon. I slipped away from the crowd, heart pounding in my chest. I had 30 minutes to reach Olivia's midtown apartment, a journey that would take at least 20 in good traffic. With today's chaos and weather, it might be impossible. I texted Ethan quickly. "Emergency came up. Can't make meeting with Martin. Will explain later." His reply was immediate. "Where are you going? Building not sus. Secure." I ignored it, pocketing my phone as I jogged toward the parking garage. Raindrops soaked through my blazer and blouse, plastering my hair to my forehead, but I barely noticed. All I could see was that image of Olivia, terrified but alive. My sedan was parked on level 3. As I fumbled with my keys, a figure emerged from behind a concrete pillar. Rebecca Lynn, looking as drenched and disheveled as I felt. "Melissa," she called, hurrying toward me. "Where are you going? Martin's looking for you." I hesitated, one hand on my car door. Could I trust her? In the last hour, everything I thought I knew about Noventra had been turned upside down. If someone as trusted as Olivia's doppelganger could infiltrate our company, anyone could be compromised. "I need to check something," said vaguely. "Tell Martin I'll call him when I can." Rebecca's expression shifted from concern to suspicion. "This isn't the time to go rogue. We need to coordinate our response. Someone just attacked our headquarters." "It's not going rogue," I insisted. "It's following a lead." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "What lead?" "Melissa, if you know something, you need to tell security." "Yeah?" Seconds were ticking away. Every moment spent explaining was a moment not spent helping Olivia. "I received a message," I admitted. "Someone has Olivia. The real Olivia. They sent proof." Rebecca's eyes widened. "Show me." I pulled out my phone, displaying the chilling image. Rebecca studied it, her HR training giving way to something sharper, more analytical. "This could be a trap," she warned. "I know. And you're going anyway?" I nodded, something hardening inside me. She would do the same for me. Rebecca appeared to make a decision. Not alone, you're not. I'm coming with you. The text said to come alone or she dies. I protested. They always say that, Rebecca countered, already moving toward the passenger side of my car. But what they really mean is, don't bring security. I'm HR, remember? I'm practically invisible. There was no time to argue. I unlocked the doors and we both slid inside, the interior light briefly illuminating Rebecca's determined expression before darkness enveloped us again. Midtown? She guessed as I started the engine. How did you know? Olivia's address is in our personnel files. I'm the head of HR, remember? She fastened her seatbelt as I reversed out of the parking space. Also, you need to call Martin, right now. If I tell him, you don't have to tell him where we're going, she interrupted, but you need to tell him about the message. This is bigger than just us, Melissa. She was right. As I navigated through the rain-slicked streets, Rebecca put my phone on speaker and dialed Martin's number. Where the hell are you? His voice demanded immediately. Following a lead, I explained, keeping my eyes on the road. I received a message with proof that someone is holding Olivia hostage. The real Olivia. A pause. Where? I can't say. They warned me not to bring anyone. This is not a negotiation, Melissa. Martin's voice hardened. You're not trained for this. Tell me where you're going, and I'll send our security team. And get her killed, I countered. No, I'm already on my way. Rebecca's with me. Another pause. Rebecca Lynn? From HR? Present, Rebecca confirmed dryly. Don't worry, Martin, we're not complete idiots. We're going to park a block away and assess the situation before approaching. This isn't a joke, Martin snapped. These people just infiltrated our headquarters with professional-grade equipment and tactical planning. They're not amateurs. Neither are we, Rebecca replied calmly. We're not planning to storm in with guns blazing. We'll gather intelligence and call you before making any moves. I shot her a questioning look. That hadn't been the plan at all. She mouthed silently. Just say yes. Fine. Martin relented after a moment. But you call me the, Second, you have eyes on the building. And you do not, I repeat, do not enter without backup. Understood. I agreed, though something in my tone must have betrayed my reservation. I mean it, Melissa, Martin insisted. These people are after the Cambridge acquisition details. That's worth billions. They won't hesitate to eliminate witnesses. The gravity of his warning settled over me like a physical weight. What had started as a strange case of corporate espionage was rapidly escalating into something far more dangerous. We'll be careful, I promised, ending the call as we approached Olivia's neighborhood. Midtown Atlanta loomed around us, its luxury high-rises cutting through the rainy mist. Olivia lived in the Brookwood, an upscale condominium complex with Art Deco styling and a 24-hour security. Getting in without being noticed would be our first challenge. What's the plan? Rebecca asked as I circled the block, searching for an inconspicuous place to park. I don't know, I admitted, the reality of our situation finally hitting me. I didn't think this far ahead. Rebecca gave me a long look. You rushed into a potentially life-threatening situation without a plan? I had 30 minutes to save my friend's life, I defended. Planning seemed like a luxury. To my surprise, Rebecca smiled. That's exactly what I'd expect from Olivia's closest friend. She reached into her bag and pulled out something I never expected to see in the possession of an HR executive, a small black case containing what looked like lock-picking tools. What the? I started. Before HR, I worked in corporate security assessment, she explained, catching my stunned expression. Let's just say I know a few things about getting into places I'm not supposed to be. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe we weren't completely out of our depth after all. There's a service entrance on the east side, Rebecca continued, consulting her phone. Less cameras, and the door uses an older magnetic card system that's, let's say, less than secure. I found a parking spot half a block away, partially obscured by a large delivery truck. As we stepped out into the rain, I checked the time. 7 minutes until the kidnapper's deadline expired. We need to hurry, I urged, pulling my blazer over my head as makeshift protection from the downpour. Rebecca nodded, her expression shifting from professional confidence to grim determination. Just remember, we're here to gather intelligence, not play hero. If we see anything suspicious, we call Martin immediately. I nodded my agreement, but as we jogged toward the building, splashing through puddles and dodging traffic, I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever awaited us inside. Olivia's apartment would change everything I thought I knew about Noventra Solutions, about my colleagues, and perhaps most disturbingly, about myself. The true descent was just beginning. The service entrance to the Brookwood yielded surprisingly easily to Rebecca's expertise. Within minutes, we were inside the climate-controlled hallways of the building, leaving puddles of rainwater on the polished marble floors. The contrast between the stormy chaos outside and the pristine quiet within was jarring, like stepping from one world into another. Apartment 1407, Rebecca whispered, checking her phone. 14th floor. We opted for the service elevator, hoping to avoid the main lobby's security cameras. As the elevator hummed upward, I checked my watch. 3 minutes left until the kidnapper's deadline expired. We need a plan before we reach her floor, Rebecca insisted, her voice low but urgent. We can't just knock on the door. My mind raced through scenarios, each more improbable than the last. The building management might have a master key. Rebecca shook her head. No time, and too many questions. The elevator slowed as it approached the 14th floor. My heart hammered against my ribs. Wait, Rebecca said suddenly, pulling something from her bag, a small electronic device I didn't recognize. Building security scanner. If there's any unusual electronic equipment inside, cameras, signal jammers, alarm systems, this might detect it. Might? She gave me a pointed look. HR salary doesn't exactly fund military-grade equipment, Melissa. The elevator. Doors opened to reveal an elegant corridor with plush carpeting that muffled our footsteps. We moved cautiously toward apartment 1407, the scanner in Rebecca's hand glowing faintly as she swept it back and forth. Anything? I whispered. She frowned, studying the device. There's something, but it's not what I expected. The signal's too clean, too strong. We paused outside Olivia's door. No. Sounds came from within. No voices, no movement, nothing to indicate a hostage situation. This feels wrong, Rebecca murmured. Professional kidnappers don't typically hold victims in luxury condos with doormen. I reached for my phone. I should call Martin. Wait. Rebecca held up the scanner, which now pulsed with increased intensity. This signal. It's familiar. Before she could explain. Further, my phone vibrated with an incoming message. Time's up. Enter now. Alone. Your friend's life depends on it. I showed the text to Rebecca, whose expression hardened. This is definitely a trap. But what if Olivia is really in there? I countered. The image of my bound friend seared into my memory. I can't just walk away. Rebecca hesitated, then nodded. I'll wait here. If you're not back in 5 minutes, I'm calling Martin and every law enforcement agency in Georgia. Drawing a deep breath, I approached the door and knocked. Seconds stretched into an eternity of silence. Then, unexpectedly, the door swung open. The apartment beyond was dimly lit. Olivia's tasteful modern decor bathed in shadows. Nothing seemed disturbed. No signs of struggle, no overturned furniture. Nothing to suggest a violent abduction. Hello? I called, stepping cautiously over the threshold. Olivia? The door closed behind me with a soft click. I spun around to find myself face to face with the last person I expected. Ethan Wells. You shouldn't have come, he said quietly, his familiar face now transformed by an expression I'd never seen before. Cold, calculating, almost predatory. Ethan? Backed away instinctively. What are you doing here? Where's Olivia? He gestured toward the living room. See for yourself. I moved cautiously in the direction he indicated, hyper-aware of his presence behind me. The living room opened up to reveal Olivia, the real Olivia, sitting calmly on her sofa, completely unrestrained, a tablet computer in her lap. Her expression as she looked up wasn't fear or relief, but something far more complex. Guilt. I'm sorry, Melissa, she said softly. This wasn't supposed to involve you. My mind struggled to process what I was seeing. You're okay? You're not being held hostage? No, Olivia admitted, setting aside her tablet. That was necessary misdirection. Misdirection? I echoed incredulously. I thought you were going to be killed. I risked my life coming here. Ethan moved to stand beside Olivia, their united front sending a chill through me. We needed to get you away from Noventra headquarters, he explained, away from Martin. Why? I demanded, anger beginning to displace my confusion. What the hell is going on? Olivia and Ethan exchanged glances, a silent communication that spoke of long partnership and shared secrets. Show? Her, Olivia said finally. Ethan tapped something on his phone, and the large television on the wall flickered to life, displaying a series of financial spreadsheets I immediately recognized, part of the Cambridge acquisition package I'd helped prepare. Do you know what you're looking at? Ethan asked, his tone oddly gentle. The Cambridge deal, I replied warily. The largest acquisition in now Noventra's history. What about it? Look closer, Olivia urged. At the source of funds. I squinted at the screen, scanning the columns of numbers until I spotted what they wanted me to see. A complex series of offshore transactions feeding into the acquisition capital. These aren't legitimate investment sources, I realized slowly, my analyst's brain finally engaging. They're shell companies, fronts, money laundering, Ethan confirmed grimly. On a massive scale, the Cambridge acquisition is Martin's masterpiece, a perfectly legitimate-seeming business transaction designed to clean hundreds of millions in dirty money. The room seemed to tilt sideways. That's impossible. I would have noticed. The board would have questioned. The board sees what Martin wants them to see. Olivia interrupted. Selected data, manipulated projections, controlled narratives. You only saw fragments, Melissa. We've been putting the pieces together for months. My leg suddenly felt weak. I sank into a nearby chair, trying to process the implications. If what you're saying is true, then the woman on the plane, the one who looked like you, FBI, Ethan supplied. Agent Samantha Cole. We've been working with them to build a case against Martin and his partners. Partners? As in organized crime, Olivia confirmed, her voice hardening. Martin has been their corporate fixer for years, helping them legitimize their operations through Noventra's acquisitions and partnerships. The perfect corporate citizen, the mentor who championed my career, the leader whose ethics I'd admired. All of it was a carefully constructed facade. The woman at your desk, I said slowly, piecing it together. Also FBI? Olivia nodded. Another agent. The plan was to extract the final evidence we needed while Martin was distracted on his investor tour, but he spotted Agent Cole boarding the plane and everything accelerated. So the call to me, the office lockdown, the evacuation, all part of Martin's attempt to contain the situation, Ethan explained. He's desperate to protect the Cambridge deal. It's the culmination of years of planning. My mind raced back over the day's events, recalibrating each moment in light of these revelations. Rebecca, I realized suddenly. She's outside right now. Is she part of this too? Ethan and Olivia exchanged another glance. Rebecca. Lynn isn't who she claims to be, Olivia said carefully. Before she could elaborate, the apartment door burst open. Rebecca stood in the threshold, but her demeanor had completely transformed. Gone was the composed HR executive. In her place stood someone coiled with lethal focus, a weapon held steadily in her hand. Federal agent, she announced crisply. Everyone stay where you are. Rebecca? I gasped. Special Agent Diana Mercer, FBI, she corrected, her eyes never leaving Ethan and Olivia. And you two are compromised. Agent Mercer, the woman I'd known as Rebecca Lynn, kept her weapon trained on Ethan and Olivia as she moved purposefully into the apartment, closing the door behind her. Step away from the computer, both of you, she instructed, her voice carrying the unmistakable authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Olivia remained seated, her posture deliberately relaxed despite the gun pointed in her direction. You're making a mistake, Mercer. The mistake was yours, Mercer countered coldly. Unauthorized communication with a civilian, deviating from the operation protocol. Agent Cole is already being debriefed about her role in today's fiasco. I looked. Between them, struggling to keep up with these rapid revelations. You're all FBI? Mercer's gaze flicked briefly toward me before returning to Olivia and Ethan. Ms. Chen, I apologize for the deception. This operation has been active for 14 months. Your involvement today was unplanned. Unplanned but necessary, Ethan argued, hands raised slightly in a placating gesture. Martin made us. We needed to adapt. By potentially exposing a civilian to danger? Mercer's voice dripped with professional disdain. The Bureau doesn't operate that way. The Bureau doesn't understand what we're dealing with, Olivia responded, a hint of desperation breaking through her composure. Martin isn't just laundering money. He's protecting something bigger, something in the Cambridge acquisition, that goes beyond financial crimes. I found my voice again, anger cutting through my confusion. Will someone please tell me what's actually happening? I've been lied to by everyone today, apparently including the FBI. I think I deserve some straight answers. A tense silence followed my outburst. Finally, Mercer lowered her weapon slightly, though she remained vigilantly positioned between us and the door. Noventra Solutions is under federal investigation, she explained carefully. Martin Caldwell and several board members are suspected of facilitating money laundering for organized crime syndicates through strategic corporate acquisitions. I figured that part out, I said impatiently. What I don't understand is why there seem to be competing FBI operations, why Olivia and Ethan sent me that threatening text, or why you're pointing guns at each other instead of at the actual criminals. Mercer's expression tightened. That's what I'd like to know as well. She looked pointedly at Olivia. Sutton and Wells were part of our undercover team, but something changed. They've been withholding information, operating outside parameters, because we found something the official investigation missed, Ethan insisted. Something buried in the Cambridge Code repositories. The acquisition isn't just about money laundering, Olivia added. Cambridge Technologies has developed a security vulnerability, a backdoor that can be exploited in their authentication systems, which are used by 12 federal agencies, Ethan continued urgently, including Defense, Treasury, and Homeland Security. Once Noventra acquires Cambridge, Martin's partners will have access to government systems at the highest levels. Mercer's professional mask slipped momentarily, revealing genuine concern. That's a serious allegation. Where's your evidence? On servers that were conveniently evacuated today, Olivia replied bitterly. The security incident at headquarters gave Martin's team the perfect opportunity to remove or destroy anything incriminating. Which is why we needed Melissa, Ethan added, turning to me. You created the original financial analysis for the Cambridge deal. Your work contained the trace evidence we need, the connections between the shell companies and the actual sources of the funds. I blinked, suddenly understanding. My backup files. I keep encrypted. Copies of all my major projects on a separate secure server. Outside Noventra's network, Olivia confirmed with a hint of pride. You always were methodical about your data. Mercer holstered her weapon, her posture relaxing slightly, though her expression remained guarded. If what you're saying is true, why go rogue? Why not bring this to your FBI handlers? Ethan and Olivia exchanged another, meaningful glance. We tried, Olivia said quietly. 3 weeks ago. Our reports were acknowledged, then buried. The Cambridge vulnerability investigation was officially deemed outside the scope of the current operation, which means either bureaucratic short-sightedness, Ethan continued grimly, or something more concerning, that someone higher up doesn't want this particular thread pulled. The implications hung in the air between us. If Ethan and Olivia were right, the corruption extended beyond Noventra, possibly into law enforcement itself. My phone buzzed insistently in my pocket. Martin, again. I showed the screen to the others. He's getting suspicious, I warned. If I don't answer it, Mercer decided. On speaker. Keep it brief. Tell him you're still looking for Asai. Leads on Olivia's whereabouts. Hands trembling slightly, I accepted the call. Hello? Melissa. Martin's voice filled the room, tension evident in every syllable. Where are you? Security is sweeping the building. We need you back here immediately. I glanced at Mercer, who nodded encouragingly. I'm still following that lead on Olivia, I replied, striving to keep my voice steady. Nothing concrete yet. I'll head back soon. No, you'll head back now, Martin insisted, a hard edge entering his tone. The situation has escalated. The FBI is involved. They're claiming our systems may have been compromised by industrial espionage. Mercer's expression darkened at this information. He's controlling the narrative, Olivia whispered, just loud enough for us to hear but not the phone, positioning himself as the victim rather than the perpetrator. I understand, I told Martin, fighting to keep any hint of my new knowledge from my voice. I'll wrap up here and be back within the hour. Sooner, he demanded. And Melissa, if you hear from Olivia or Ethan, don't engage. They're not who you think they are. Report directly to me. The call ended, leaving us in momentary silence. My mind raced with implications, possibilities, dangers. He suspects, Ethan concluded grimly. He's already crafting his defense, claiming we're the ones engaged in corporate espionage. Mercer paced the apartment, her training and experience evident in her methodical assessment of our situation. We need to move quickly. If Caldwell has corrupted elements within the Bureau, the official investigation could be compromised at any moment. The evidence, I realized. My backup files. They're at my apartment on an encrypted drive. Then that's our next stop, Mercer decided. Sutton, Wells, you're still technically federal agents, but you're on thin ice. Follow my lead from now on, or I'll have you both in custody so fast your credentials will spin. They nodded, a fragile alliance, forming between the competing FBI factions. What about me? I asked, still struggling to process my sudden central role in this high-stakes drama. I'm not an agent or an operative. I'm just an analytics manager who apparently stumbled into a federal investigation. Mercer regarded me thoughtfully. You're now a material witness in an active investigation, Ms. Chen. Your cooperation is no longer optional. What she means, Olivia translated more gently, is that you're in this whether you like it or not. Martin knows you've been with us. You can't go back to your normal life until this is resolved. The reality of my situation crashed down upon me. My career, my reputation, possibly even my safety, all suddenly hanging in the balance because of information I'd unknowingly processed, connections I'd inadvertently documented. Then let's resolve it, I decided, surprising even myself with my determination. Let's get the evidence and end this. As we prepared to leave Olivia's apartment, I caught my reflection in a decorative mirror. Rain-dampened hair, smudged makeup, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and resolve. I barely recognized myself. In the span of a few hours, everything had changed. The company I thought I knew, the colleagues I thought I trusted, the career I had carefully built, all of it had been constructed atop a foundation of lies. Now it was time to uncover the truth, whatever the cost. The drive to my apartment in Buckhead felt surreal, like moving through a dream where familiar streets had transformed into something both recognizable and utterly foreign. Rain continued to pound against the windshield, turning Atlanta's gleaming skyline into a watery blur of lights and shadows. I sat in the passenger seat of Mercer's unmarked FBI vehicle, with Olivia and Ethan following in a separate car. None of us spoke much. The weight of what we were attempting, and the consequences of failure, hung heavy in the air between us. How did you get involved in all this? I finally asked Mercer, watching raindrops trace chaotic patterns down the window. How long have you been, Rebecca Lynn? She kept her eyes on the road, hands positioned precisely at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel. 16 months. I was assigned to Noventra after financial intelligence flagged unusual patterns in overseas transactions. HR gives excellent cover, access to personnel files, legitimate reasons to meet with everyone, involvement in executive decisions without raising suspicion. And Olivia and Ethan? They were already embedded when I arrived. Wells was placed in IT security 2 years ago. Sutton's position was particularly valuable. As Caldwell's executive assistant, she had access to his calendar, communications, private meetings. I processed this information, feeling a strange mixture of betrayal and admiration. So nothing about our friendships was real. Mercer glanced at me briefly. That's not entirely accurate. Maintaining cover isn't just about fabricating a persona. It's about authentic connection. The relationships were real, even if the context wasn't. Somehow, that made it both better and worse. As we approached my apartment building, Mercer's phone rang. She answered through the car's Bluetooth system. Mercer, she stated crisply. We have a problem. The voice belonged to another agent, his tone tense. Caldwell's making moves. He's called an emergency board meeting for 9 p.m. presenting evidence of corporate espionage against Noventra. He's claiming Wells and Sutton were working for a competitor. Mercer swore, under her breath. He's accelerating the timeline, trying to get ahead of us. There's more, the agent continued. He's ordered private security to locate Chen. They're checking her known addresses. My stomach dropped. They're coming to my apartment? How long? Mercer demanded. Unknown. But they're moving fast. Mercer ended the call with a terse acknowledgement and immediately accelerated, cutting through traffic with practiced precision. We need to move quickly, she explained, already texting Olivia and Ethan behind us. Get in, retrieve the evidence, get out. 10 minutes max. My apartment complex appeared ahead, its modern glass facade glittering with raindrops. No unusual vehicles were visible. No signs of security teams. Not yet. We parked in the underground garage, and I led our small group to the private elevator that served my floor. My hands trembled slightly as I entered my access code, acutely aware of how quickly our window of safety was closing. Tell me about these backup files, Ethan prompted as the elevator climbed. Exactly where are they stored? What format? Encrypted external drive, I explained. I keep it in a hidden wall safe in my office. Olivia raised an eyebrow. A wall safe? That's impressively paranoid for an analytics manager. Despite everything, I smiled slightly. My father was an accountant for a casino. He taught me to always keep backups of financial data where others couldn't access them. Trust the numbers, but protect them too. The elevator doors opened directly into my apartment's foyer, a luxury feature that now seemed providential given our need for discretion. I disarmed my security system and led everyone through the minimalist space to my home office. Impressive view, Mercer commented, glancing at the floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased the Atlanta skyline, now shrouded in rain and fog. I moved to a seemingly ordinary section of bookshelf, pressed a hidden mechanism, and revealed a small wall safe. My fingers moved automatically through the combination, muscle memory taking over where conscious thought faltered under pressure. The safe clicked open, revealing several documents, some jewelry, and the object of our search, a sleek external drive no bigger than a deck of cards. "That's it?" Olivia asked, sounding almost disappointed by its ordinary appearance. "That's it," I confirmed carefully, removing the drive. "Every major project I've worked on for the past 3 years, including all my Cambridge acquisition analysis." Ethan immediately connected the drive to his specialized laptop, his fingers flying across the keyboard as he navigated through security protocols. "The encryption is solid. Good work. How long to access the Cambridge files?" Mercer asked, keeping watch near the windows. "Not long. Melissa's giving me the passphrase, right?" Ethan looked up expectantly. I hesitated, an instinctive caution making me pause. "How do I know I can trust any of you with this? A few hours ago, I thought I was helping my friend escape kidnappers. Now I'm apparently committing corporate espionage against my own company." "Not espionage," Olivia corrected gently. "Evidence. Collection for a federal investigation. Evidence that could destroy Martin, the company, possibly my entire career," I pointed out. "Forgive me if I need a moment to process." Mercer stepped away from the window, her expression softening slightly. "You have every right to hesitate, Ms. Chen, but right now we're racing against the clock. Caldwell is already constructing his defense, positioning himself as the victim. Once that narrative takes hold, the truth becomes much harder to establish." I looked between them. These people I'd known as colleagues, as friends, now revealed as federal agents pursuing a case that had consumed years of their lives. "Tiger Lily November Echo," I said finally. "The passphrase is Tiger Lily November Echo." Ethan entered it immediately, and the drive's contents appeared on his screen. "We're in, accessing the Cambridge files now." While he worked, Olivia's phone buzzed with an incoming message. Her expression darkened as she read it. "Security team just entered the building," she reported. 4 men, private contractors. They showed Naventra credentials at the front desk. "How long?" Mercer demanded. "Minutes. They're taking the main elevator." Ethan worked frantically, copying files to a secure FBI server. "Almost there. The money trail is all here. Offshore accounts, shell companies, everything connecting back to the organized crime syndicates we've been tracking." "And the back door?" Olivia pressed. "The vulnerability in Cambridge's authentication systems? Still looking..." "Wait." Ethan's expression changed as he opened a particular file. "Melissa, did you know about this? There's a separate analysis here labeled Security Protocol Anomalies." I moved closer, peering at the screen. "Yes, I flagged some unusual patterns in Cambridge's security architecture during my due diligence review. Their authentication systems had redundancies that made no sense from a design perspective, almost like deliberate weak points." "That's it," Ethan breathed, his fingers moving even faster. "You found the back door without even realizing what you were looking at." For a moment, I felt a strange mix of pride and horror. Pride at my own thoroughness, horror at the implications of what I'd discovered. "They're on your floor," Olivia warned, checking her phone again. "Approaching from the north corridor." Ethan closed the laptop, the file transfer complete. "Got everything. We need to move." Mercer drew her weapon, taking position near the office door. "Melissa, is there another way out of your apartment?" "Service elevator," I replied, already moving toward a door partially hidden by decorative paneling. "Maintenance and deliveries use it. It connects to a separate corridor on the ground floor." "Perfect." Mercer gestured for Olivia and Ethan to follow me. "Go, I'll create a diversion." "Diana," Olivia began, concern evident in her voice. "That's an order, Agent Sutton," Mercer cut her off firmly. "Get Chen and the evidence to safety. I'll be right behind you." No time for further arguments. I led Olivia and Ethan through the hidden door and down a short corridor to the service elevator. As the doors closed behind us, we heard a loud crash from within my apartment. Mercer's diversion apparently underway. Will she be okay? I asked as the elevator descended. Mercer can handle herself, Ethan assured me, though tension lined his face. She was special forces before the Bureau recruited her. The service elevator opened onto a utilitarian hallway, leading past storage areas and maintenance rooms. We moved quickly toward the exit, emerging into the rainy night through a service entrance at the rear of the building. Cars around front, Olivia noted grimly. We'll have to circle around. We'd barely taken 10 steps into the rain when headlights swept across us, a black SUV pulling into the service area, cutting off our escape route. Ethan reacted instantly, pushing me behind a large dumpster as the vehicle screeched to a halt. Stay down, he ordered, drawing a weapon I hadn't realized he carried. The SUV's doors opened and 2 men emerged, their postures and movements immediately identifying them as professionals, the same type of security contractors who'd entered through the front. Wells, one of them called. We know you're there. Caldwell just wants to talk. With armed escorts? Ethan replied, his voice carrying through the rain. Somehow I doubt that. Olivia had disappeared from my side, I realized with a start. I scanned the darkened service area frantically until I spotted her. She had somehow circled behind the men and was now approaching silently from their blind spot. The situation's gotten out of hand, the security contractor continued, clearly trying to keep Ethan distracted. Caldwell's offering immunity a generous severance package. Just turn over whatever evidence you think you have. And if we refuse? Ethan challenged. The man's response was chilling in its professional detachment. Then things get unnecessarily messy for everyone, especially the civilian you've dragged into this. Before he could elaborate on this threat, Olivia made her move. With stunning efficiency, she neutralized one man with what looked like a precisely targeted strike to the neck, then swept the legs out from under the second before he could fully turn. Ethan emerged from cover, keeping his weapon trained on the downed men. Zip ties, he requested, and Olivia produced them from her jacket pocket, quickly securing the contractor's hands. We need to move, she urged, already helping me to my feet. There will be others. As if summoned by her warning, the service door burst open, revealing Mercer, breathing hard but apparently uninjured. 2 more down upstairs, she reported briskly. But Caldwell's called in reinforcements. Local police have been notified of a terrorist threat at this address. He's framing us as terrorists? I gasped. Standard playbook when you're desperate, Ethan explained grimly. Escalate the threat level to justify extreme responses. Mercer led us quickly around the building toward her vehicle, rain soaking us completely as we ran. Change of plans, she announced, unlocking the car remotely. We can't go to the Bureau directly, not until we know who's compromised. Where then? Olivia asked as we piled into the vehicle. Mercer started the engine, pulling away from the curb with controlled urgency. I have a secure location. We'll regroup, analyze the evidence thoroughly, then approach the assistant director directly with our findings. As we drove through Atlanta's rain-slicked streets, emergency vehicles screaming past us toward my apartment building, I watched the city lights blur through the raindrops on the window. What happens now? I asked quietly. To Noventra? To Martin? To me? Olivia reached across the seat to squeeze my hand briefly. Now, she said with grim determination, we finish what we started. Dawn broke over Atlanta, pale sunlight filtering through the windows of the safe house where we'd spent the night. The rain had finally stopped, leaving behind a washed clean sky and the earthy scent of renewal. I sat at a small table, cradling a cup of coffee and watching as Mercer, Olivia, and Ethan prepared for what would likely be the most important meeting of their careers. My evidence, the financial trails, the security vulnerabilities, all of it, had been meticulously organized into a presentation that would leave no room for doubt or denial. The assistant director will be here in 30 minutes, Mercer announced, checking her watch. He's coming personally with only his most trusted team. Ethan looked up from his laptop. What about the U.S. attorney? Already briefed. They're preparing warrants as we speak, based on our preliminary evidence. The efficient machinery of federal justice was now in motion, accelerating toward a conclusion that seemed both inevitable and surreal. After hours of analyzing my files, cross-referencing with the FBI's existing evidence, and building an airtight case, the truth about Noventra and Martin Caldwell was about to emerge into the daylight. What happens to me after this? I asked, voicing the question that had kept me awake through most of the night. Do I just go back to my life? The 3 agents exchanged glances, a silent communication I was beginning to recognize. That depends, Mercer replied carefully. on what you want. Your expertise was crucial to this investigation. Your attention to detail caught what our specialists missed. What she's trying to say, Olivia clarified with a hint of her old warmth, is that you have options. Witness protection if you want to disappear completely. Or, I prompted. Or a different path, Ethan finished. The Bureau is always looking for analysts with your skills and integrity. The idea was so unexpected that I nearly laughed. You're recruiting me? After all this? Not officially, Mercer qualified. Not yet, but the possibility exists, if you're interested. Before I could formulate a response, a secure phone on the table buzzed with an incoming message. Mercer checked it, her expression shifting to one of intense focus. Change of plans, she announced. Caldwell's making his move. He's called a press conference for 9 a.m. at Noventra headquarters. He's going to announce the Cambridge acquisition publicly, ahead of schedule. He's accelerating everything, Ethan realized, trying to create a fait accompli before we can stop him. The assistant director is diverting to Noventra, Mercer continued, already gathering her materials. We need to move. Now. 30 minutes later, we pulled up outside Noventra Solutions headquarters. The building looked different in the morning light, still imposing but somehow diminished now that I knew the corruption at its core. News vans lined the street, reporters positioning themselves for the upcoming press conference. Stay close to me, Mercer instructed as we approached the main entrance. Federal agents will secure the perimeter, but until they arrive, we're on our own. We passed through the lobby unchallenged. Mercer, Olivia, and Ethan had all been Rebecca Lynn, Olivia Sutton, and Ethan Wells, long enough that security recognized them without question. I kept my head down, heart pounding as we rode the elevator to the executive floor. The conference room was already filled with journalists, board members, and key Noventra executives when we arrived. Martin stood at the podium, resplendent in a perfectly tailored suit, his expression confident as he prepared to address the gathered media. Our entrance caused a ripple of whispers. Martin's eyes widened slightly when he spotted us, but he recovered quickly, his professional mask slipping seamlessly back into place. "Ah, there you are, Melissa," he called, his voice projecting warmth and relief. "I was concerned when you didn't return my calls. Please join us. This is a historic day for Noventra." I remained where I was, flanked by the 3 agents. Across the room, I noticed the assistant director arriving, with several other FBI officials positioning themselves discreetly near the exits. "I think I'll stay here, Martin," I replied, my voice steadier than I expected. "I wouldn't want to interrupt your announcement about the Cambridge acquisition." Something flickered behind his eyes. Calculation, perhaps, or the first stirrings of genuine concern. "As you wish." He turned back to the assembled press. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on such short notice. Today marks a transformative moment for Noventra Solutions." As Martin launched into his prepared remarks, extolling the strategic benefits of acquiring Cambridge technologies, Mercer moved silently toward the podium, federal credentials now visible. Olivia and Ethan fanned out to either side, creating a subtle but unmistakable perimeter. Martin faltered mid-sentence as Mercer approached, his practiced smile wavering. "Excuse me, this is a private corporate event," he began, but Mercer was already speaking. "Martin Caldwell," she announced, her voice carrying clearly through the now silent room. "I'm Special Agent Diana Mercer with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I have a warrant for your arrest on charges of money laundering, wire fraud, conspiracy, and racketeering." The room erupted in chaos. Journalists jumping to their feet, cameras flashing, executives exchanging panicked glances. Several board members made discreet moves toward the exits, only to find federal agents blocking their path. "This is absurd," Martin declared, his voice rising above the commotion. "This woman has been masquerading as our HR director as part of an industrial espionage operation. Security!" But the security team hesitated, confused by the conflicting authorities and the sudden appearance of federal agents throughout the room. "We have evidence," Mercer continued calmly, "linking Noventra's acquisition strategy, particularly the Cambridge deal, to organized crime syndicates laundering money through your corporate structure." "Preposterous," Martin scoffed, though I could see sweat beginning to bead on his forehead. "These allegations are completely unfounded. Our finances are transparent, our acquisitions thoroughly vetted." "Actually," I found myself saying, stepping forward despite my racing heart, "they're not." All eyes turned to me, the loyal employee, the trusted analyst, now standing against the CEO. "Ms. Chen," Martin warned, his voice dropping dangerously, "think very carefully about what you're doing. I met his gaze steadily. I already have. For years, I've analyzed Noventra's acquisitions, including Cambridge. I documented everything, Martin. Every shell company, every circular transaction, every offshore account. I may not have understood what I was seeing at the time, but I recorded it all. And there's more, Ethan added, moving to stand beside me. The Cambridge acquisition isn't just about money laundering. It's about acquiring control of authentication systems used by federal agencies, systems with deliberate vulnerabilities engineered to provide backdoor access. The journalists were frantically taking notes now, cameras trained on the unfolding drama. Martin's expression had transformed from confident control to something closer to desperation. This is a coordinated attack on a legitimate American business, he insisted, looking desperately toward the board members for support. But they were already distancing themselves, physically and metaphorically, from their embattled CEO. As federal agents moved in to formally take Martin into custody, I watched his carefully constructed world collapse around him. The man who had mentored me, who had seemed to embody corporate excellence and integrity, now stood revealed as something entirely different. "You could have been exceptional," he said quietly as they led him past me. "I saw such potential in you, Melissa." "I still am exceptional," I replied, meeting his gaze. "Just not in the way you wanted me to be." In the days that followed, Noventra Solutions became headline news for all the wrong reasons. The Cambridge acquisition was halted, federal investigators swarmed the company's offices, and arrests extended well beyond Martin to include several board members and executives from partner organizations. I testified before grand juries, explained complex financial mechanisms to prosecutors, and watched as the case expanded to encompass political figures and international connections I'd never imagined. Through it all, Olivia, Ethan, and Mercer remained constant presences, no longer pretending to be the colleagues I'd known, but becoming something new. Allies, mentors, and eventually, friends in a more honest context than before. 3 months later, I stood on the balcony of a new apartment, watching the sunset paint Atlanta's skyline in shades of gold and amber. My phone buzzed with a message from Mercer, Diana, as I now called her. "Training starts Monday. Still sure about this?" I smiled, typing my response. "Absolutely. Some things are worth starting over for." My decision to accept the FBI's recruitment offer hadn't come easily. I'd spent weeks weighing options, considering alternatives, imagining different futures. But in the end, the choice felt right. A chance to use my skills for something meaningful, to protect others from the kind of deception I'd unwittingly facilitated. Olivia joined me on the balcony, handing me a glass of wine. She'd been reassigned but had remained in Atlanta during the transition, helping me navigate the complex aftermath of the Noventra case. "Ready for your new life, Special Analyst Chen?" she asked with a smile. "Getting there," I admitted, still processing everything that happened. "That's normal. The first case that changes your understanding of the world, it stays with you." We stood in companionable silence, watching the city lights begin to twinkle on as darkness fell. So much had changed in such a short time. The company I'd devoted years to was now in receivership. The career I'd carefully built had transformed into something entirely different. The colleagues I'd trusted had been revealed as both more and less than they appeared. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked suddenly. "Going undercover, living a double life, watching people trust you when you're not who they think you are?" Olivia considered the question thoughtfully. "Sometimes," she admitted. "The lies weigh on you. But then I remember why we do it, to protect people who don't even know they need protection. That makes it worthwhile." I nodded, understanding in a way I couldn't have just months ago. "Truth in daylight," I murmured. "What's that?" "Something my father used to say. Numbers don't lie, but people do. Always bring your work into the daylight." I thought he just meant double-check your accounting, but now I see he meant something deeper. Olivia raised her glass in a small toast. "To truth in daylight, then." As we clinked glasses, I felt a sense of peace settling over me, not the naive confidence of my previous life, but something more resilient and hard-won. I had lost much, but gained something perhaps more valuable: clarity, purpose, and the knowledge that even in a world of deception and betrayal, truth eventually finds its way into the light. The shadows in the corner office had finally been dispelled, and though the path forward wasn't without its challenges, I was ready to walk it with open eyes.